So as we continue with our radicals here, let's solve some equations, some radical equations. A radical equation has the actual variable in the radicand. So can I solve a radical equation? Let's go ahead and just jump right in. You guys know how to solve equations. Draw a line down the equal sign. Get the letter by itself. The inverse of plus 7 is take away 7. Whatever we do on one side, we want to do to the other. So we have the square root of x equals, this is a big old 0. 16 minus 7 is 9. And now what I want to remind you is that the inverse of square rooting a number is to square a number. So my next step here, we are going to square both sides to get x all by itself, and 9 times 9 is 81. And that's it for that problem. So inverse operations, the opposite of add is subtract, the opposite of multiply is divide, and the opposite is of squaring a number is taking the square root. So the next one, let's go ahead and draw that line down the equal sign. The inverse of subtract 5 is add 5. We have a 0 here. We bring everything else down. So we have the square root of x equals 3. Again, that inverse of square rooting is to square both sides. And you're left with your x equals, and 3 squared is 9. So again, hopefully we've solved equations all year long, and hopefully this is not too challenging. I have 2 more examples practicing solving equations, making sure we know our inverse of add is subtract, inverse of multiply is divide, and the inverse of square rooting a number is to square it. And whatever we do to one side, we always do to the other. That's it. Don't get freaked out when you see these examples. Let's get that line drawn down the equal sign. If you notice, both sides are covered in a square root. So let's do the inverse. The inverse of square rooting is squaring. Whatever we do to one side, we always have to do to the other. What happens here is it just gets rid of the square root and the squared. They cancel. So you have 5t minus 11 equals t plus 5. And now we just need to get our letter together. We need to move our terms around. So let's get the t to the other side. The opposite of a positive 1t would be to take away 1t. Whatever we do to one side, we want to do to the other. This becomes 0. So I have 4t minus 11 equals 5. The opposite of minus 11 would be to add 11. Again, whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. We have 0. We have 4t is equal to 16. And 4t means 4 times t. The inverse of multiplication is division. So to get t all by itself, we need to divide both sides by 4. And we get t equals 4. So again, just going through how we can solve equations if we have radicals. And last one, very similar to the one we just did. Draw that line down the equal sign. We want to make sure we square both sides. The inverse of square rooting is squaring. And we have 7x minus 4 equals 5x plus 10. Let's move those x's to get them together first. I want to move the smaller one because it keeps it positive. And so when I take 5x away from both sides, that's a 0. So all I have is 10 on the right. And 7x take away 5x is 2x minus 4. Still need to get the x alone, isolate the variable. We're going to add 4 to both sides. We have 2x equals 14. And last but not least, the inverse of 2 times x would be to divide. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. We want 1x by itself, and we get 7.